was beginning to get very tired of sitting by my sister on the bank and of having nothing to do. Once or twice I had peeped into the book my sister was reading, but it had no pictures or conversations in it. And what is the use of a book, I thought, without pictures or conversation? So I was considering in my own mind as well as I could, for the hot day made me feel very sleepy and stupid, whether the pleasure of making a daisy chain would be worth the trouble of getting up and picking up the daisies, when suddenly a white rabbit with pink eyes ran by me. There was nothing so very remarkable in that, nor did I think it so very much out of the way to hear a rabbit say to itself, oh dear, I shall be late." When I thought it over afterwards, it occurred to me that I ought to have wondered at this, but at the time it seemed quite natural. But when the rabbit took a watch out of its waistcoat pocket and looked at it, then hurried on, I started to my feet, for it flashed across my mind that I had never seen a rabbit with either a waistcoat pocket or a watch to take out of it. And burning with curiosity, I ran across the field after it, and fortunately was just in time to see it pop down a large rabbit hole under the hedge. In another moment, down I went after it, and never once considering how in the world I was going to get back out again. The rabbit hole went straight on like a tunnel for some way, and then dipped suddenly down, so suddenly that I had not had a moment to think about stopping myself before I found myself falling down a very deep well. Either the well was very deep or fell very slowly, for I had plenty of time as I went down to look about and wonder what was going to happen next. First, I tried to look down and make out what was coming to, but it was too dark to see anything. Then I noticed that they were filled with cupboards and bookshelves, and here and there I saw, maps of pictures hung upon pegs. I took down a jar from the shelves as I passed by and was labeled mole. To my great disappointment, it was empty. Then my stomach started to rumble, remembering the sweet mole my mom would make on occasion. I did not like to drop the jar for fear of killing somebody, so I managed into one of the cupboards as I fell past it. Well, I thought to myself, after such a fall like this, I shall think nothing of tumbling down the stairs. How brave they'll think of me at home. Why, I wouldn't say anything about it even if I fell on top of the house, which was very likely true. Down, down, down. Would the fall never come to an end? I wonder how many miles I've fallen by this time, I said aloud. I must have gotten somewhere near the center of the earth. Let me see. What would be 4,000 miles down, I think? For you see, I hadn't learned several things learned from lessons in the schoolroom. And though this was not a very good opportunity for showing off my knowledge, there was no one to listen to me. Still, it was good practice to say it over. Since there was nothing else to do, I began talking to myself. Oh, how Alicia and Claire will miss me. Alicia and Claire were my dogs. I hope they remember their bowl of water and kibbles. Oh, my dears, I wish you were here with me. There are no cats or mice in the air, so I'm afraid you might have to catch a bat. But that's very likely for a mouse, you know. But do dogs eat bats, I wonder? And here I began to get rather sleepy and went on saying to myself, in my dreamy sort of way, do dogs eat bats or do bats eat dogs? For you see, as I couldn't answer the question, it didn't matter much which way I put it. I felt like I was dozing off and had just begun to dream that I was walking down hand in hand with Alicia and Claire and to speak in pure Spanish. And I would say, Alicia and Claire, dime la verdad. ¿Ustedes comen a las batas? When suddenly, thump, 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 down I came upon a heap of sticks and dry leaves, and the fall was over. I was not a bit hurt and jumped onto my feet. For a moment I looked up, and it was all dark overhead. Before I was another long passage, and the white rabbit was still in sight, hurrying down it. There was not a moment to be lost, and I went right past it, or went right after it. I was close behind, and when I turned the corner, the white rabbit was no longer to be seen. So I found myself in a long hall, which was lit up by rows of lamps hanging by the roof. There were doors all around the hall, but they were all locked, and when I came up to them and tried to open the doors, I couldn't. And I was wondering how in the world I was going to get out again. I opened the door and found that it led to a small passageway, which was no longer larger than a rat hole. So I knelt down and looked along the passage into the loveliest garden that I had ever seen, but it also reminded me slightly of my beautiful hometown of Mexico. Oh, how I longed to be there, just being able to be with family and all the animals and just having such a blast. I couldn't find anything that would help me until I saw a very small Mexican Coke that said, "Drink me." So I wondered whether it was marked poison or not, and had read a lot of little histories, whether about children who got burnt and eaten up by wild wildebeest and unpleasantries, and also about people drinking poison. Who does that? So I just made sure that there wasn't anything that said poison on there. So once I drank it, it tasted like so many Mexican delicacies that I couldn't even imagine. What a curious feeling, I said to myself. I must be shutting up like a telescope. And I was indeed correct, and now only 10 inches high, and my face brightened up. The thought that now was right size was going through the door. But, silly said myself, I forgot the key. So, me being as impatient as possible, I began crying and crying and crying. How could I forget the key? Now what am I going to do? How am I ever going to get out of here? When then, all of a sudden, there was a little box, and in the box, it had a little 3 milks cake. And with the little 3 milks cake, there was a sign that said, "Eat me." So I'll eat it. I waited and waited and waited, and all of a sudden, I felt myself getting bigger and bigger. Finally, I'm able to reach that key, so I grabbed the key, and now how am I going to get smaller again? And there, out of nowhere, another Mexican Coke that said, "Drink me." So I drank it. And right when I was on the right size to be able to get in, I was put the key into the doorknob and turning it, when all of a sudden, boom, I hear my name being called and called and called. And I realized that I woke up, and my sister was there, tapping her foot, yelling at me, saying that I needed to be up, that I cannot be lollygagging while I'm supposed to be studying. Oh, this was just a dream. But little did I know that this was just the beginning of this beautiful land called Wonderland.